expected this.
My service is finally over.
Hello there. Today I've got a Stormlance only Deadeye that is finally endgame viable. Stick around to the end of the video where I highlight 3 additional skills that become fully viable with nearly identical setups. But this Stormlance version is the version of the build I've been trying to make work for multiple leagues now. Before 0.5, Stormlance always felt like it was missing something. The damage could look somewhat good on paper, but the frenzy charge generation and upkeep just weren't consistent enough to make the whole thing feel smooth. However, in Return of the Ancients, quite a lot has changed. We now have a nice lineage gem and charge support combo to actually push this into a real build, and the result is a setup that clears fast, is very tanky, and takes down powerful bosses with ease. If you watched my recent Whirlwind Lance build recently, this is going to feel very similar. The shell is almost the same. The big change is that we're obviously swapping Whirlwind Lance for Storm Lance and then restructuring a few things around Barrage, charge consumption, and cooldown. The core interaction is Barrage empowering our Stormlance. We're using Uhtred's Constellation for +2 cooldown uses, along with Olroth's Conviction to empower 2 additional skill uses. That means that every time we press Barrage, our next 3 Stormlance attacks get empowered, and because of some new cooldown tech, as soon as we're done with those 3 attacks, we're always have full uptime on Barrage. And that's where things start getting a little ridiculous. Because we're a Deadeye, we are taking the Thrilling Chase Ascendancy node, which gives the benefit of consuming Frenzy Charges a 50% chance to be doubled. So when we're at 6 Frenzy Charges and Thrilling Chase procs, Barrage ends up adding 13 extra projectiles to Stormlance. On top of that, we're running Salvo on Stormlance, which adds even more projectiles based on the number of seals we've accumulated. So in the best case scenario, when we're at max Frenzy Charge, Thrilling Chase procs, and we've got full Salvo seals, we fire in 7 different directions, and each of those repeats 13 times. After all that, 5 lances stay lodged in the ground, they detonate quickly, they chain through enemies, and then explode at the end for more than double the damage as the actual projectile. So the gameplay loop that you're seeing is basically this. You hit Barrage to empower your next 3 attacks. You unload this wall of Stormlances all around us, they land, they chain, they explode, and then the whole screen gets erased. And that's why the build feels so satisfying. It has that big bursty spear playstyle, but the chaining and delayed detonations make the clear feel much bigger than you'd expect. And this is true even if you only have 2 or 3 Salvo steals instead of the max. You still get extra projectiles, you still get the all direction coverage, and you do it without the downside of supports like multi-shot or needing to also socket in Nova. As far as the actual performance goes, this build has handled everything that I put in front of it. I've cleared all the endgame content that I've tested so far. I've even run 4 tablet 200% delirium maps with 8 extra random modifiers. Those maps are obviously very dangerous and you need to play them very carefully, but the build absolutely has the damage and survivability to get through them just at a slower pace. But I don't know anyone who's going through those at a quick pace. Are pretty challenging and require more methodological play. Now, getting into the skill setup, Stormlance itself is running Salvo, Pinpoint Critical, Elemental Armament, Rage Forged, and Overabundance 2. Salvo, again, is one of the reasons the clear feels so good. Pinpoint Critical is getting us right near our crit cap. Elemental Armament is great because our spear has a lot of flat lightning damage that is, and Stormlance converts our physical damage to lightning, and we also have some elemental damage on our rings. Rage Forge is enabled by Eternal Rage, which we'll get into shortly, and gives us a huge more damage multiplier. Because we constantly generate rage in between casts, as we wait for our seals to accumulate, we're almost always at max rage when we attack, so there's no downside to this support gem. But the really important support here is Overabundance. The gem does 2 massive things for this skill. First, the reduced duration makes Stormlance detonations happen much faster, which effectively acts like an attack speed boost for the part of the skill that matters the most, which is the explosion at the end, which deals more than twice the damage as the projectiles and the bolts. Second, the +1 limit is a huge deal because Stormlance has a cap on how many active lodged spears you can have. So when we're already firing above the base limit, which is most of the time, getting 1 more slot is effectively a 25% increase to our single target damage and to our clear. So this is one of the most important supports in this build. For Barrage, we're stacking everything around empowered uptime and charge value. We've got the lineage set up with Uhtred's Constellation and Olroth's Conviction, and then I'm also using Adziri's Patience for heavy cooldown recovery. You don't have to run it the way I do if you don't like the extra button timing, but Cooldown Recovery 3 is completely fine. I just happen to have my flask button right next to Barrage, so at this point I just press both automatically. Do whatever you feel comfortable with. We're also running heightened charges, which gives us a chance for consumption charges to be doubled, and when you combine that with Thrilling Chase, we end up with a 70% chance to double the effect of consuming the frenzy charges. On top of that, we've got Perpetual Charge plus charge retention from the body armor. So when Barrage consumes a full stack, we often still have charges left over for the next Stormlance sequence. And that matters a lot because this build is absolutely built around this frenzy charge uptime. A lot of that uptime comes from our Ascendancy and a few support interactions. Called Shot gives us Sniper's Mark automation, so that is set up to generate even more charges with Charge Profusion to help us gain additional charges such as power charges or endurance charges. Power charges will provide us with 26% more multiplier to our critical hit chance, and endurance charges provide 20% more evasion and energy shield. And both feel great because they're being generated passively through the same engine that keeps Stormlance going. On top of that, we're also running Thaumaturgic Generator on the amulet, and that gets even better because of Avidity and a weapon rune that both help duplicate frenzy charge again. So when we gain one frenzy charge, we're always getting two. When Sniper's Marks triggers, we refill quickly. When Thaumaturgic Generator kicks in, we refill again. And all of that combines into the consistency Stormlance used to be missing in previous leagues. Now, on the Aura and Spirit side, again, we're using Eternal Rage and Berserk. Eternal Rage gives us a constant rage generation, and with some rage nodes on the tree, that translates into 44% more damage. Berserk then scales that even harder for about another 25% more multiplier on top of that. But there is one thing you do need to manage here, and that's the life drain from Berserk. To offset that, the Sacred Flame Shrine Scepter is giving us the Purity of Fire aura, and in that aura, we can slot free spirit support gems, and I'm using Precision, Cannibalism, Clarity, and importantly for Berserk, Vitality 2. Then inside Berserk itself, I'm also running Vitality 1. Together, those two Vitality gems give around 3% of our max life regenerated per second. That still doesn't fully cancel the Berserk drain by itself, but while mapping, Cannibalism is constantly giving life on kill, so in actual gameplay this is never an issue, and when I leave a map I just weapon swap to my second set where Berserk is turned off, so I don't have to deal with the drain at all outside of mapping. It's really a clean solution and it makes everything feel a lot better. And then of course we're running Herald of Thunder, and this does a ton of work outside of the additional damage and clear. Because Stormlance is consistently shocking and killing autonomously, Herald of Thunder is chaining across the screen at all times. That helps with the damage, but more importantly, we've also linked Blind and Maim into the support gems here. Blind in particular is huge for survivability on an evasion-based character like this. Against blinded enemies, our effective hit pool gets a 20% more multiplier applied to it. Combined with slower enemies from main, that's a big reason the build feels so comfortable even in heavily juiced content. Wind Dancer is another big defensive layer, and we have Armor Break supporting it to help us generate additional endurance charges when it procs. Also, Ghost Dance is there just to help us recover energy shield when we do get hit, and then Mana Remnants, which gives us a bunch of quality of life and importantly a ton of cooldown recovery while mapping, thanks to the new lineage support gem, Kutal's Rejuvenation. This support gem gives us 10% increased cooldown recovery per stack, up to a limit of 8 stacks. Now we're always picking up Remnants because of Mana Remnants, so this helps a ton with our Barrage uptime. And then for our curse setup, we're using Blasphemy with Temporal Chains and a few supports to increase the area of effect and the curse activation time. You can swap that if you want more damage or a different defensive profile. Elemental weakness is definitely an option if your defenses are already strong and you want to lean harder into offense. And feeble can also help if physical hits are what keep getting you killed. But for the way this build actually plays and the way I want it to play, where you're right in the middle of packs and condensing these storm lances into smaller areas for more damage overlap, Temp Chains just feels the best. Gives us more space, slows the pressure down, and makes the entire mapping experience much safer by providing more maneuverability. Onto the gear side, the setup is strong but not unreasonable. We're using an Ordained Spear, and I honestly haven't upgraded this yet because the next meaningful jump costs a massive amount of currency for a small gain, so I'm just sticking with it for now. The offhand is a Sacred Flame Shrine Scepter again, and that is also important because it gives us extra spirit, it gives us the additional fire damage, and makes enemies resist elemental damage based on their lowest resistance. And since almost all our damage is elemental, that of course helps a ton. And the helmet is the Constriction Command Viper Helm, which makes it easy for us to count as surrounded, which matters because we're scaling multiple surrounded bonuses on the tree. We socket that with two 10% increased area of effect runes to boost the size of our explosions. And then the gloves are one of the stronger rare pieces we have because they give projectile levels, projectile damage, and extra projectile chance, which is exactly what we want for this build. But a triple flat damage pair of gloves will have close to the same boost to your damage here, so this is not necessary. The boots, body armor, and rings are mostly there to solve our movement speed, resistance, attributes, and just general stat pressure. But we are using a Sacrificial Regalia specifically to gain that additional skill level to our Corrupted Gems. I sacrifice a good bit of defenses to squeeze this piece in, but defensively the build already felt great, so I went with the offensive boost here. Go with whatever fits your setup. For the belt, we are using a Mage Blood, and this is the only real expensive item on this build, and it is not mandatory. It is a powerful upgrade, but not a build enabling unique. You can absolutely play the build with a good rare belt with some resist, some life, some armor, some mana, etc., and still have it function just fine. As for our Ascendancy, again we're taking Thrilling Chase, which says benefits of consuming frenzy charges for your skills has a 50% chance to be doubled. This is what's helping us get so many projectiles. And then Avidity, so that we have a 50% chance to gain that extra frenzy charge. Coupled with the rune on our weapon, this is giving us a 100% chance to gain that extra frenzy charge, which is super important. And then again, Called Shots, which is automating our Sniper's Mark setup to generate additional frenzy charges automatically. Very crucial part of the build and one of the main reasons that we've gone with Deadeye, because this helps us when Thaumaturgic Generator is down. And then lastly, Point Blank, which gives our projectiles 20% more damage to targets in the first 3 meters of their movement. We are playing this like a close combat playstyle, so this is giving us a damage boost there. As for the rest of the tree, we're taking the usual crit cluster, such as for the Jugular for some crit damage bonus and stats, and True Strike for some critical hit chance and stats. Again, we are very stat starved on this build, so those extra stats help a lot. Struck Through, probably the best critical hit chance node in the game. Heart Stopping, again, crit hit chance and stats. Heartbreaking, crit damage bonus and stats. And then we're coming down a little bit lower to the Spear Cluster, which gives us more critical hit chance with spears and some critical damage bonus with no downsides. And then over here to Tainted Strike for more critical hit chance and Magnitude of Elements, which helps with our shock. As for just our generic increased damage scaling, again, we are using that Constricting Command Viper's Helm. So we're taking both the main surrounded nodes over on this side of the tree by the Mercenary starting point to give us that increased attack damage. This gives us a little over 200% increased attack damage and it's basically our only source of attack damage that we're getting. And then this Rage cluster over here, which gives us 14 additional Rage, which is a significant damage multiplier when you have Eternal Rage and Berserk. And then we also do have these Herald damage nodes, which give us more damage when affected by our Herald of Lightning. So this is actually quite powerful, especially on a lightning-based build. Defensively, I've got Spectral Ward. This is doing a lot less work now that I'm using the Sacrificial Regalia, but I still want that extra energy shield. And then Principle of the Hollow. This whole cluster over here, along with First Teachings of the Keeper, give us some deflection, some evasion, some energy shield, and then importantly, it gives us this hidden node, the Hollow Keeper, and this helps a ton with things like Chill, Shock, Elemental Weakness, Temp Chains, and everything like that. I hardly feel the effects of those while mapping, so very important to get this piece for 1 point. And then further rounding out our defenses, this Evasion cluster over here gives us enhanced reflexes for deflection and evasion, and again more stats. And then Bestial Skin, which gives us more evasion from our quick body armor. Again, we're losing some value here with the Sacrificial Regalia, but it's still a good node. And then Escape Velocity, and that's just a couple points here for a good boost to evasion and movement speed. And we're also taking this full cluster of movement speed, evasion, and reduced movement speed penalty while moving near the starting of the tree. And this is just cheap investment. There's no reason not to take that. It's too much bang for your buck right there for this playstyle. And then we also get some evasion from being surrounded, as well as from Savagery, which gives us 50% when we've consumed a Frenzy Charge recently, and we're getting that anointed from our Megalomaniac Diamond. So our evasion goes up significantly while we're mapping by at least 80%. And yeah, when we're surrounded, when we're mapping, and especially if we have an endurance charge, we're at well over 95% chance to deflect. We're also taking crystallized immunities here. This is super important because if you are constantly getting ignited, you're not going to have any energy shield. You're just going to be at a significant defensive weakness. So definitely come here and get this. Ignite's going to be a major issue for this build, but we also need the stats that on the way to it, so that helps. And then just for a little extra utility, we're taking Fervor over here along with these nodes that give us a little extra Frenzy Charge duration that rounds out our Frenzy Charge investment so that we're at 6 Frenzy Charges and they last over 30 seconds. And then Adrenaline Rush over here for more attack and movement speed if we killed recently, which is almost ever, or almost always. And then we've got this Time Lost Emerald here right by these two clusters. This is a holdover from my Whirlwind Lance build, so we've got critical damage bonus, cooldown recovery, and projectile speed here. I've not updated this yet, but that is good enough for now. I do want to invest more into our emeralds because we've got quite a few dead stats on them. We'll cover that in a minute. And then a Heart of the Well, which of course we're getting our gain as extra damage along with some crit hit chance and crit damage bonus. And then in addition to Savagery, we have Engineered Blaze on our Megalomaniac here, and this gives us up to 40% increased damage, or sorry, increased area of effect based on how many enemies we've ignited recently. And then +3 to all Stormlance skills, Prism of Belief Diamond. This was only 1 divine, so hopefully those stay cheap. And then our emeralds, which we do want to upgrade because we have the dead stat, the melee damage if you dealt a projectile attack recently. That's a holdover from my Whirlwind Lance build because it does both melee and projectile damage. One of those flavor of rolls is on each of these, so there's definitely some room here for improvements, especially with the new jewel crafting methods. I'm pretty sure we can unlock a significant bit of damage here with some of those, so it's clearing everything with leaving a bit of damage on the table here. And then lastly, we do have a weapon swap setup here, and really we're just taking increased chance to shock and shock magnitude. And I only use this for Pinnacle bosses. My first cast I will cast on my second weapon set so that I get that additional magnitude of shock and shock duration, and then I switch back to weapon set 1 and just blast for full power. So if you see any of the bossing in the video and that first shot looks like it doesn't do any damage, that's because we're sacrificing quite a bit of damage nodes to apply that shock, and then the damage picks up significantly after that. You do not need to do this for map bosses. And like I said, here's a couple additional skills you can do with this setup. One is Explosive Spear, because with the Barrage and Salvo setup, we're blasting those explosive spears all over the screen. This is with a level 18 skill gem and no Prism of Belief Diamond. So there's a ton of power left on the table here, and this is a 200% deli map. I didn't do anything to this other than swap Explosive Spear into where Stormlance was and load up a map. So easily can do this if that's more your style. You can also use this with Glacial Lance. Again, same setup, same low level skill gem, no changes, not even adding Herald of Ice to this. And yeah, we're shooting those Glacial Lances all over the screen, and when we consume a Frenzy Charge, they explode and do a massive amount of damage. And this is probably the strongest of the additional skills that you can do with this setup, because it does have a tremendous amount of clear as is. It is a little clunky because you don't get to control exactly where the projectiles go, but if you have enough, that doesn't matter because it's just going to cover the whole screen with them. And you can see here, we also have Ricochet. We've substituted Ricochet into where Overabundance was, since Overabundance isn't needed for Glacial Lance. There's no limit to the number of lances. So Ricochet makes it so that it bounces off terrain, which just gives additional coverage. And you can also take some Ricochet nodes on the tree if you wanted to invest in that further, so that it's pretty much always bouncing off the terrain. And yeah, you can see it pretty much makes quick work of this breach, and it's also extremely powerful for map bosses. You can see here it pretty much one-shots that map boss. I had hit him once before he flew away for a little bit, and then when he came back, he got one shot. So it does very well. And then lastly is Lightning Spear. This one's probably the weakest of the two. Lightning Spear's just not in a very good spot this league, but can be made to work. I'm using the new lineage gem Breach Lord's Amalgam here, and that allows the projectiles to return. So you can definitely do really well here. You can see I just closed all those rare breach monsters at the end of the breach with just one shot because of how many projectiles it shoots and all of them returning. So those are 3 additional options that you have to supplement or switch into this build if you want to just kind of have a variety of playstyles, because you can literally just set up the tree and set up your gear and then swap out one skill gem and have a completely different build and playstyle. So some more options for you. And yeah, that's the build. This is the first Stormlance setup I've played that actually feels complete. Like I said, it clears fast, it scales hard, and it's surprisingly tanky, and importantly, it's just fun, and it looks really good and flashy with the MTX that I have on it. I kind of given us those like lens flare blasts all over the map. You know, you just jump into a pack, fire Stormlance in every direction. You just got a ton of chaining, a ton of explosions, Herald of Thunders crashing around all over the screen, and the whole thing just feels great. And we are sitting at around 80% chance to evade and 95% chance to deflect, with a solid amount of life and energy shield behind that. So it has enough to survive real content while still putting out the kind of damage you want from an endgame spear build. And I think importantly, there's still a ton of room to improve it. You can invest harder into the weapon, jewels, and defensive gear depending on what you need more of. You know, so if you've been waiting for Stormlance to finally become a real endgame skill, this is the closest I've seen it get. And that's a wrap on this one. If you enjoyed the video And if you end up trying the build yourself, I'd love to hear how it goes for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.